If you're selling on Amazon right now, I'm going to give you a fast way to make 10 to 40% more money than you're making right now with very little work. I know this sounds crazy, but my friends have literally just done this, so I want to share this story with you. It's international expansion, specifically to Canada. And I'm going to break down all of the tactics and the strategy that you can use here to get this same result. So I was talking to two seven-figure sellers recently, Ken and David. We have another interview coming out. It's going to be awesome. For our previous interviews, you can find those here on the channel. Just search seven-figure sellers, Ken and David. These guys are awesome. And they're really open with what they share about their businesses online. So I really appreciate that. They have a product in the pet category that does phenomenally well in the US. It's probably the 10th most reviewed pet product in this specific pet niche in the US. Does great. But as you grow and you expand, you start looking at, okay, how do we take this thing to the next level? How do we get more revenue? And they started looking at international expansion to Canada first. And it makes a ton of sense if you think about it. Canadians have very similar language, and so the customer search terms for listing optimization and for ads are going to be really similar. Yes, the population is about 1/10 of the US, but on the other hand, it's much less competitive still to sell on Amazon.ca, which is the Canadian site. So if you do well in the US and you come over to Canada, there's still a great little arbitrage there because it's nowhere near as competitive as selling on Amazon.com. And it's very close, geographically close, so you don't have to ship overseas with your inventory, tie up a bunch of inventory into FBA in Germany just yet. Canada's a nice next international stepping stone. And what they did, just to test the waters, was they used Amazon's program called NARF, or N-A-R-F. You can just give that a Google. But basically, it's an Amazon program that allows you to test the waters in some ways. They took their product in the US, and NARF allowed them to list it on Amazon.ca in Canada, but fulfill those Canadian orders using their US Amazon FBA inventory. The upside to this is obvious. You can test the waters and you can see whether or not this thing is kind of going to work. Do we have traction in Canada, any sort of early traction? And the downside though is that the products will ship much slower to the end customer in Canada. So your click-throughs, your conversions are going to be lower. It's not prime, right? So it's not a true representation of all the sales you're going to get when you expand, but it's a nice way to get your feet wet. So they did that first because they are smart. And then when they saw traction, they started sending limited units, maybe a limited number of SKUs, into Amazon FBA warehouses in Canada proper. And then the sales have just exploded. Canada has been 30% of what the US sales bring in, which is just phenomenal, right? How did they do this? Another thing they did that was super, super smart was they took their global reviews from the US and ported them into Canada. So instantly, overnight, they went from being the 10th best reviewed product in the US, and they take those same reviews. They're the second highest reviewed pet product in Canada for this niche, which is crazy, right? You did the same work as you did in the US, same product, same everything. A lot of similar customer search terms. They ported the reviews over, and they just, and so 30% more money in their pocket overnight. Wild. And as a kicker, they found that you can even charge a little bit more to Canadians, even after the exchange rate. Maybe because there's fewer options. So something to look at for yourself. I wrote you a free book as well as a gift to you. It'll be in the comments section of this video. I will drop it there. It's got our full playbook on how to scale profitably with ads. I'll see you on the other side. Get it if you want. Bye.